Hello friends, my name is Chaitanya. I am an advocate practicing at Kakinada, Andhra Pradesh. In my last lecture, I told you about preventive action of the police and FIR, First Information Report. In this lecture, I want to tell you about confession, search and remand. This lecture is about confession, search and remand. Confession, section 164. Power of the magistrate to record confessions and statements, section 164. Confession is an admission of guilt. It may be a written or oral statement acknowledging the commission of a crime. According to Stephen's Digest of the Law of Evidence, confession is an admission made at any time by a person charged with the crime, stating or suggesting the inference that he has committed the offense. As defined in Tomlin's Law Dictionary, confession is a direct admission or acknowledgement of his guilt by a person who has committed a crime. Confession is a self-forming statement. Confession incriminates and it acts against the confessor. The confessional statement may be brief or narrative. Coming to an illustration for confession. A is tried for murder of B. A says to the court that I have killed B. Such statement is a confession. Now coming to types of confession. Confession is of two types. They are judicial confession and extrajudicial confession. Judicial confessions are those which are made before magistrate or court in the course of judicial proceedings. Extrajudicial confessions are those which are made by the party elsewhere than before magistrate or court. Extrajudicial confessions are generally those made by a party to or before a private individual, which includes even a judicial officer in his private capacity. Now, coming to a question that who can make confession? Accused alone may make confessional statement. The juvenile offender may make the confessional statement, but special precaution is required in case of juvenile offender. In case of juvenile offender, the magistrate must take all requisite precautions for satisfying himself that the confession is voluntary and free from any undue influence or inducement or from the influence of police. Now, coming to a question, can executive magistrate record confession? The executive magistrate cannot record the confession. The confession recorded by executive magistrate has no value in the eye of law. Therefore, a confession recorded by executive magistrate is absolutely inadmissible. Now, coming to another question, when confession can be recorded? According to section 164 clause 1, confession or statement can be recorded either in the course of an investigation or at any time afterwards before the commencement of a inquiry or trial. Hence, even if the confession is recorded after the commencement of inquiry or trial, it can still be used as evidence. Confession must be free and voluntary. A confessional statement made voluntary, truthful, and reliable and beyond reproach is an effective piece of evidence to establish the guilt of the accused. Confessions are admissible when they are made voluntary. While recording the voluntary confession, the competent magistrate shall warn the accused that he need not make the confession and that if he made it, it will be used as evidence against him at the trial and that he will not be taken as an approved. After warning, the accused must be given time to think over the matter and then only record the confession. The magistrate can pose the following questions before recording the confessional statement. They are: have you understood that you are not bound to confess? Have you understood that if you confess, it can be used against you? Why are you making the confession? Has anybody threatened or induced or compelled you to confess? Are you willing to make the confessional statement voluntarily? If you are willing to confess, will you make the true statement? These are the questions the magistrate can pose before recording the confessional statements. Now, coming to directions to be followed to ensure voluntary confession. According to section 164, the magistrate must be very cautious and follow the following directions while recording the confessional statement in order to ensure that a confession is made voluntarily. The magistrate must warn that he is not bound to confess. Inform him that it may be used as evidence against him. Explain that he has a right to be defended by a lawyer of his own choice. Explain about right to consult a lawyer before recording the confession. Inform about the free legal service in case of poverty, indigence, etc. Be given adequate time to think and reflect after warning. Be inquired about the treatment, custody from which he was produced. Ask how he received injuries if found on the body of the accused. Order to remove handcuffs, send police away to create free atmosphere. Inform the provision of constitutional statutory protection to accused. Be sent to judicial lockup after confession. Be asked the reason why he is going to confess which acts against him. Ascertain that the confession is of his own accord or by any influence. Put question to accuse to ascertain the voluntariness of confession. Reject imperfect and involuntary confessional statements. Record the statement in the manner provided in section 281. Record confessional statement in open court during courthouse. These are the directions to be followed to ensure voluntary confession. In a case, Dara Singh alias Ravindra Kumar versus Republic of India, popularly known as Stein's murder case 2002, the Supreme Court laid down the following guidelines on confessional statements made by the accused before a magistrate under section 164 of the CRPC before proceeding to record the confessional statement. The guidelines are: a searching inquiry must be made from the accused as to custody. An inquiry about the treatment he had been receiving in such custody. A magistrate should ask the accused why he wants to make a statement. A magistrate must warn that confession surely shall act against him. The matter should be granted sufficient time for reflection. He should be assured of protection from police torture or pressure. Judicial confession not given voluntarily is unreliable and will be retracted. The conviction cannot be based on such retracted judicial confession. Non-compliance of section 164 renders the confession unworthy of credency. Accused should be completely out of police influence during reflection. Magistrate must ascertain and satisfy that confession is not influenced. During recording confession, no police shall be present in open court. Confession requires some corroboration before conviction. These are the guidelines laid down in the case Dara Singh alias Ravindra Kumar versus Republic of India in recording confessional statements. Now, coming to manner of recording confession. Any such confession shall be recorded in the manner provided in section 281 for recording the examination of an accused person and shall be signed by the person making the confession, and the magistrate shall make a memorandum at the foot of such record to the following effect. I have explained to that person that he is not bound to make a confession, and that if he do so, any confession he may make may be used as evidence against him, and I believe that this confession was voluntarily made. It was taken in my presence and hearing, and was read over to the person making it, and admitted by him to be correct, and it contains a full and true account of the statement made by him. This is manner of recording confession by magistrate. Now coming to when oath not necessary. The manner of examination and recording statement of an accused by courts is prescribed under section 281 of CRPC. At no stage administering oath is required to be made to an accused. The accused is at liberty to make statement or complying before the magistrate at any stage of the trial and recording such statement need not require administering oath. This is above when oath not necessary. Now coming to place of recording confession. Confessional statement should not be recorded in jail and should ordinarily be recorded in the court during court hours. Even it may be recorded even in the chamber of the magistrate. Thus, unless there are exceptional reasons to the contrary, confessions should be recorded in open court and during court hours. This is about place of recording confession. Now coming to evidentiary value of confession. Sections 24 to 30 of the Evidence Act deal with the admissibility of confessions by accused persons in criminal cases. A confessional statement made by the accused before a magistrate is a good piece of evidence, but is not substantive evidence. A conviction can be based on confession only if it is proved to be voluntary and true. According to Section 25 of the Indian Evidence Act 1882, no confession made to police officer shall be proved as against the person accused of any offence. Similarly, according to Section 26, no confession made by any person when he is in custody of a police officer, unless it be made in the immediate presence of a magistrate, shall be proved as against such person. This is evidentiary value of confession. Now coming to use of statement against co-accused. The statement made by an accused, exculpatory in nature, cannot be used against a co-accused for making conviction. However, such statement would be admissible in evidence where both accused and co-accused are tried jointly. This is use of statement against co-accused. Now coming to retracted confession. What is retracted confession? Retracted confession means taking back the confessional statement. When an accused alleges that he has not made the confession voluntarily or that he has made the confession as a result of mental or physical torture that amounts to retraction, is called retracted confession. A retracted confession is simply a confession which has been retracted by the maker at any point subsequent to making it in course of the proceeding. Such statement cannot have the same force of normal confession. Neither it can be completely vitiated as having no evidentiary value. This is retracted confession. Now coming to exculpatory confession. Exculpatory statement is one wherein the accused making it does not implicate him. Such confession is not valid. There cannot be conviction based on confession without any direct or circumstantial evidence. Sometimes confessor does not implicate himself and on other hand implicate other persons in his confessional statement. In such case, such statement cannot be relied upon and also cannot be used against other co-accused. This is exculpatory confession. This is about confession. Section 164. After confession, coming to search. Search sections 165 and 166. Section 165 authorizes an officer in charge of a police station or a police officer to make a search without warrant. Section 165 of the code lays down various steps to be followed in making a search. The recording of reasons under section 165 does not confer on the officer jurisdiction to make a search, though it is a necessary condition for making a search. If that can be ignored, it cannot be said that the search is carried out in accordance with the provisions of the Code of Criminal Procedure. It would be a search made in contravention of the provisions of the code. Now coming to preconditions for search. Section 165 prescribes certain preconditions which must be fulfilled before a search may be made. They are: the search must be necessary for investigation. The offence must be a cognizable offence. Must reasonably believe that the thing required will be found in a place. The ground of belief regarding necessity of search must be recorded. Must personally conduct the search if practicable. Sub-officer may be authorized if personal search is not practicable. These are the preconditions for search. Now coming to illegal search. What is illegal search? A search will be illegal when it is in contravention of sections 100 and 165 of the code. Thus, a search which is not carried out in accordance with the provisions of the Code of Criminal Procedure would be treated as illegal search. An illegal search may be resisted. Even if the search is illegal, it does not violate trade. This is illegal search. Now, coming to admissibility of evidence obtained under illegal search. In a case, State of Madhya Pradesh versus Patan Mallah, AR 2005, it was held that the evidence obtained under illegal search is not completely excluded unless it has caused serious prejudice to the accused. The discretion has always been given to the court to decide whether such evidence is to be accepted or not. This is about admissibility of evidence under illegal search. Now coming to search in the limits of another station. Generally, a police officer has power to make a search within the limits of his jurisdiction. But Section 166 authorizes officer in charge of a police station to have a search made within the limits of another station to the officer in charge of that station. Thus, In emergent cases, a search under Section 166, Clause 3 and 4 may be made by an officer at any place within the limits of another police station. This is search in the limits of another station. This is about search. Sections 165 and 166. After search, coming to remand section 167. The word remand is derived from the Latin word remandare, which means to send back to the custody. It is an order of the court to send back to the custody. It is an act of sending an accused person back into custody to await trial or the continuation of the trial. The police officer cannot detain an accused person arrested without a warrant for more than 24 hours. According to Article 22, Clause 2 of the Constitution of India, any person arrested or detained in custody should be produced before the nearest magistrate within 24 hours of such arrest. If the investigation is not completed within 24 hours and the police officer requires that the accused should remain in his custody beyond such period, he shall, under such circumstances, obtain an order from a magistrate authorizing the further detention of the accused in custody. Such an order is known as order of remand to custody. The magistrate may remand the accused to either police custody or judicial custody. Section 167 deals with police custody and Section 309 deals with judicial custody. Generally, remand is ordered when investigation cannot be completed in 24 hours. Now, coming to application for remand. Whenever a person is arrested and it appears that the investigation as regards his involvement cannot be completed within the period of 24 hours provided in Section 57 of CRPC, the investigating officer should produce him before the magistrate with an application for police custody remand as per the provisions of Section 167 of CRPC. The magistrate may authorize detention of the accused in such custody for a term not exceeding 15 days and thereafter send the accused to judicial custody as per Section 167 of CRPC. A magistrate may release an accused on bail if the charge sheet after investigation has not been filed by the prosecution before the court within 60 to 90 days. This is application for remand. Now, coming to remand to police custody. According to Section 167 Clause 4, if magistrate authorizes detention of the accused in police custody, he shall record his reasons and if he is not a chief judicial magistrate, he shall forward a copy of his order with his reasons for it to the chief judicial magistrate. This is remand to police custody. After remand to police custody, coming to remand to judicial custody. Section 309 CRPC deals with remand only to judicial custody. Section 309 comes into operation after taking cognizance and not during the period of investigation, and the remand under this provision can only be to judicial custody. After the expiry of the first period of 15 days, the further remand during the period of investigation can only be in judicial custody. Police custody found necessary can be ordered only during the first period of 15 days. If a further interrogation is necessary after the expiry of the period of first 15 days, there is no bar for interrogating the accused who is in judicial custody during the periods of 90 days or 60 days. The detention in police custody is generally disfavored by law. This is remand to judicial custody. Now, coming to incomplete investigation bail. Incomplete investigation bail. If the investigation is not completed within the period of 90 days or 60 days as provided under the proviso to subsection 2 of section 167, then the accused has to be released on bail as provided under the proviso to section 167 clause 2. The period of 90 days or 60 days has to be computed from the date of detention as per the orders of the magistrate and or from the date of arrest by the police. Consequently, the first period of 15 days mentioned in section 167 clause 2 has to be computed from the date of such detention, and after the expiry of the period of first 15 days, it should be only judicial custody. This is incomplete investigation bail. Now, coming to remand period. The judicial magistrate can, in the first instance, authorize the detention of the accused in either police custody from time to time, but the total period of detention cannot exceed 15 days in the whole. There is no maximum period imposed in case of judicial custody. If the arrested accused is produced before the executive magistrate having judicial powers, where judicial magistrate is not available, the executive magistrate is empowered to authorize the detention in such custody, either police or judicial, only for a week. If the investigation is not completed within the period of 90 days or 60 days as provided under the provision to section 167 clause 2, then the accused has to be released on bail. This is remand period. So, this is the end of this lecture. In my next lecture, I want to tell you about case diary, police report or charge sheet, and inquest. So, thank you everyone. Have a nice day.